that does a thing here. Waiting, redirecting to the Facebook page. This is the exciting part, guys. This is where it all happens. I refresh here. The tea is going to get poured very soon, which is also quite exciting, but not yet. This is the part where you have to wait for me to do this, which I kind of like. I close this, mute this thing, wait for Facebook. Huh. Internet seems very slow today. Refresh, make you guys wait longer. Maybe I have to, I see my profile photo is reverted back too. Guys, I'm sorry. This is not the Adam Quiney that you are used to seeing, enjoying, to being with. Let's try this one more time. I click posts. There we go. We're live, coach. There's people watching, but I'm just dicking around here. I apologize, guys. Oh, that's what I do. I click there. Okay, there. I figured it out. I've solved this. And I see we've got a new little emoticon option, which is a care. So now we have like, love, care, haha, wow, sad, angry. I'm glad about that because, let's get some tea going first. For the longest time, people would post something and I would want to send them love, but it felt weird, you know, if someone's like, oh, this person, I don't know, I've split up with this person, and then I'd put a heart and it would feel like, oh, I'm loving the fact that you've split up with this person or that you're hurt by this or something. And that always felt a bit weird. I don't know about you guys. So now that we have this care emoji, I think that's going to solve the vast majority, 90% of the problems that we're finding on internet communication. I suspect most of the arguments on Facebook are going to die off. I think probably most conspiracy theories will just sort of simmer away now, and things are going to be better. I feel things are going to be better. And I wonder if that's a COVID creation. Has COVID created the care emoji for us? Good morning, Chrissy. Good morning, Maria Morales. I think, and she'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we have a fellow Latina, and she will probably pronounce your name much better than I am. She might even be doing it as she's just sitting watching this, like, this guy, he needs to get some skill with that tongue and ability to roll the R's. So we've got our tea here in the A Dream is a Wish Your Heart Makes. Is that what it is, Cinderella? A dream is a wish your heart makes. I think this is Cinderella that I'm looking at here. Let's have a sip of tea together. Maria, thank you. And Chrissy, very enthusiastic. Yo, look at that chin. Is this a chin beard? I often think of a chin beard as like just like the Abe Lincoln style, where you shave most of this part and then just have the hangy down there, which is a look that I'm not too upset has gone out of style. Anyhow, let's talk about something other than facial hair. What is up this week? I'm looking around my office because that's usually where the stuff that is up is. Too Smart to Know Better has finished being edited. So I've now gone through the last proof. What they're doing is they're filling out the italics and putting all the formatting back in that got removed when I said, hey, I need to edit this. It's not the book that I want to sell or market or anything. And in the meantime, the Spectrums of Being is mostly done. It's mostly handled. Hey, Kamran, long time no see, brother. From NJ, is that New Jersey? It's been quite a while. I think last time we talked to you were in India, right? Unless NJ is an India province, whichever it is, I don't know. It's good to see you, man. And in the meantime, I've been writing a lot about what's been present for me is a lot of conversation around money, possibility, our ability to enroll people in some possibility in their lives in the face of circumstances that say you can't have possibility. And so kind of going to back my way into this point. I want to talk about possibility and fear and how those are showing up right now. And but in line with that, one of the things that's been really live for me lately is Jonathan, this character who apparently is being written into a book. It started because I read a terrible leadership parable called Get a Grip. A leadership parable is like a book that sort of is ostensibly to teach you about leadership of some sort. I think Patrick Lencioni is the most famous. He wrote Getting Naked and a lot of other books like this. The Goal is another one. And so these stories are like framed in a narrative about something happening. And in you reading what these characters are doing, you see the explanation of leadership and stuff like that. Get a Grip is a book where a lot of the way it describes like a process, an entrepreneurial process for entrepreneurs to kind of be entrepreneurs and move themselves forward. But there's a lot of things in it that as a coach and someone who supports people to really create transformation really caused me to wrinkle my nose like this as I was reading. Do you ever do that when you're reading? You're like, okay, I'll just bring that back down. We'll be good, Adam. So like an example of that where one of the characters in Get a Grip is chronically late. He's always late. It's super obnoxious. He's always late. And so he comes in, they hire this management consultant, leader man, guy, whatever. And wouldn't you know it, the chronically late person shows up late. And so the person writes on the whiteboard, Vince Lombardi, who is, I think, a football guy. I'm not super demonstrating a bit of ignorance here. I don't know football that well, or at least I don't know Vince Lombardi that well. And so the leader man is going through their agenda and he addresses the Vince Lombardi that he's written up there. And he says, Bill, here we subscribe to Vince Lombardi's position on being on time, which is you're either early or you're late. So which is it going to be? And the guy's like, oh, yes, I totally got it. And then for the rest of the book, his chronic lateness is cured as though by magic, as though he just needed the name Vince Lombardi, or he just needed someone to say like, you're either early or you're late. And that was the only thing that was in the way. And so I read this, it was compelling. I enjoyed reading it. I liked the story, but there was just a lot of those nose wrinkly moments. And I was like, this is bullshit. I could write it better. Like this, I like this frame, but the stuff that they're putting forward is kind of, it's a little idealistic. It's missing the mark. And so initially I started writing just parodies of this kind of literature where I'd have, the first one I wrote was where some guy went away to a leadership seminar and then started showing up in his board meetings wearing overalls, carrying a pig under his arm and doing all sorts of ridiculous stuff. And then as I started to write those, I really enjoyed it. And I really started to enjoy the what that kind of approach offered. Like it really lets you, rather than explaining something which can feel a little academic, it lets you model it. You can give someone an immediate experience of what's happening through the characters. And so over time, I started to write for a character named Jonathan, who was a magnificent coach and a very human person. And he has been getting channeled via me to write about money and supporting people to get past their objections. So a lot of my posts this week have been on that journey. And it's kind of had me think like I've been wanting to create some kind of course for quite some time, and supporting people to overcome their fear to create whatever it is that they want in their life is essentially all you're ever doing as a coach. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff, but that's ultimately what it is how do we live from our souls? How do we step more deeply into what inspires us? How do we get past our fear? And where a lot of coaches, a lot of leaders, a lot of everyone, where we tend to fall down in supporting people to do that is in those places where we get a little afraid that it might be about ourselves, or that we're being pushy, or that maybe I'm attached to you giving me money. And so Jonathan's going through this process with someone, supporting them in getting themselves to a yes on a particular project of theirs. Just so happens that the project is called Hire Jonathan as My Coach. So anyhow, it's a lot of rambling. What I'm talking about here is ultimately the opportunity, or what I'm feeling inspired and called towards, is to use that framing, that approach where we can kind of get it out of the academic and talking about something, and instead get right into like the modeling how it happens, and then actually providing some kind of video or training or course or something like that on the back end. So you can walk through it and then get supported to do that in your own life. And I think, get out of here, person sending me a message. I think this is an essential skill. And I think it's something that is not really taught in most coaching and leadership-based programs, is that the core of all of our work is we have to enroll people in it. We have to inspire people to say yes, and we have to be able to stand with them once they're confronted by their fear. Because if you're taking on something in your life beyond what is safe, beyond your comfort zone, by definition, there will be fear there. And so what a lot of us what I see happen a lot in the world is that we loudly proclaim, I stand for people's possibility and for them to be inspired and to live lives that set them on fire. And then once we come up against their fear, we drop them. We say, oh, you know what? That person said no, but it's not on me. I want to work with people really committed to something in their lives, or the people I work with would never say no, or I only am a yes to a hell yes over on the other side. And it's like, yo, that's your stuff. That's your job, is to actually support them not getting stopped by their fear. And if you really want to support people to live a life of possibility, live a life where they're heart forward and soul forward and stepping into their deepest desires and past their deepest fears, well, you got to be able to hang with the fear. You got to be able to start to take ownership for the fact that your fear is showing up there just as much as your client's fear. So that's kind of brewing. I haven't fully created something like that yet. It's more like an idea hanging out back here. That being said, I wrote a post on Money and asked, like, hey, is anyone interested in a course or some conversation, like a 2-hour call where we just go through this? And the response was overwhelming. So that's usually a good sign. That's a good marker for me, is if people don't always say yes to the stuff I put out there. Sometimes I say, like, ask me anything. What are you curious about? And I get crickets. And it's like, got it. People are not interested in me opening myself up and saying, ask me anything that way. They're interested in something different. They really want to hear about the money. So that's where we're feeling guided today. I'm going to talk about fear and possibility, and then we're going to bring Melissa on. So before we bring her on, I've talked about this a little bit before. I want to speak to it from both sides. Anytime we are stepping into possibility, which is to say, anytime we're stepping beyond your comfort zone into the unknown towards the stuff you want but cannot yet see how to get, or maybe even feel is impossible, we're also working with your fear. Those two show up in mutual amounts. So you can think of it a bit like blowing up a balloon. As you blow up the balloon, you can't blow up half of a balloon. You can't just blow up the possibility side of the balloon. They expand together. And so the more possibility available for you in a particular choice, the more fear is going to show up with that possibility. And interestingly, the more fear you're currently present to, the more possibility there is available. And so what's kind of cool about that is right now, during this time we're living in, there's a lot of fear. There's also a ton of possibility. And we tend to lose sight of that. We tend to see the fear and then we project it onto other people. We're like, oh, I hate the way these people are showing I'm so afraid, rather than getting like, oh, your fear's in that too, Adam. Talking about myself, just to be clear, I'm projecting my dislike of how people show up from their fear. And if we can kind of get like, oh, I'm afraid, and own that as a starting point, then we can start to see, oh, holy crap, there might actually be some possibility here that wasn't before. In my fear, if I can make friends and make peace and sit with it, there might be something available here that I have not previously conceived of. In order to do that, though, we have to be willing to accept, honor, and own that we might be afraid. And that's a tough place for a lot of us. Certainly a tough place for me to be. So if you want to hear more about that money conversation, jump on my timeline. There's lots of that there. You can join. I'm going to post when we make that call show up. I think it's 2 weeks from today on a Thursday. We've got it scheduled now. Bay and I will be leading that. But that's not what you're here for right now. What you're here for right now is the good shit. So let's bring Melissa on. Get that camera on, Melissa. Get your mic on. Let's dive into this. Let's do this. Yeah. Hey. Have you changed since we first got on here? You're throwing me
a layer. It's a little chilly here in Hawaii, you know?
Oh boy, that's a good way to get zero sympathy from people.
I know.
Well, let me share how you and I know each other, and it's neat because let me share how you and I know each other and who you are for me already, and then we'll go from there. We'll dive in. It's neat because some of the people that we have on these calls I've known for years and years, and some of the people like you I've known for, I don't know, 10 minutes, really, right? We've kind of been in this shared orbit over the last couple of weeks. I can't remember who added who on Facebook. And you reached out and said, hey, I love what you're doing and I'd love to volunteer. And one of my favorite things are people that are game. And
Yeah.
so, as soon as we got on the call, part of who I get you are, Melissa, is adventure, courage, feminine grace, softness, love, and sovereignty is another word that comes through. So thanks for bringing all of that already.
Thank you. Thank you for shedding light to that. Yeah, because I have my own dose of fear as well. I'm human too. And I resonate with what you said about when our clients come to us with their fears, where they're mirroring our own fears.
Yes. Yeah. I don't even need my clients to do that. I just turn on Facebook and I'm like, so it's live for me all over the place. Thanks for
right.
a million mirrors.
Right. And it's interesting how it works out, right? Because I come from corporate America and I came over to Hawaii about 5 years ago on a one-way ticket when I was in the middle of my spiritual awakening, not having any idea what any of this was. Anxiety, depression, suicidal. I mean, I had the whole gamut. And when I finally decided to go on Facebook, right, with this new Melissa, and I had this overwhelming fear of getting backlash from folks.
Yes.
And we're 6 hours ahead here. So when I woke up in the morning, it was a string of support, just gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous support from all these beautiful souls that I haven't seen in years, from high school, from elementary school, right? And then the one message from my very, very good friend criticizing my work. And it was like, wow, my very fear that I was afraid of was showing itself to me, right? In that one thread. And that was really beautiful to just allow it to unravel. And that was the beginning of my journey of really trusting the work and really trusting why I'm here. And things just naturally unfolded after that.
What catalyzed you making that step, that leap out of corporate America and into what you do now?
Well, the leap out of corporate America wasn't a choice. I was mentally ill. And I put that in air quotes because I understand very, very well now what all that means. But it was just a space of, I started recognizing how money was moving, the relationships that I had, the games we were playing. I started seeing the underbelly of what existed, right? What we're discovering now, I have been seeing it for some time, but denying it. And it was just a loss of self, complete self. I don't know who I was. I felt like I was a shell of a person because who I had been programmed as just wasn't fitting anymore. It wasn't working anymore. And I didn't know how to go to the next step. So it was a complete surrender. I left corporate America. I got a little bit deeper. And then in one of my many, many long meditations, I heard this gorgeous soft voice say, go to Hawaii. And I said, I'm officially losing my mind. I'm really hearing voices now. And that was it. I got a one-way ticket. I came over and complete transformation in here in the Aina, in the land of Hawaii. The power here is just super, super intense. And I allowed myself to come back into my feminine divine here in Hawaii. Yeah, Hawaii really supported me in that journey.
Beautiful. Yeah, corporate America is this interesting, we're trained out of who we are just by, not through malice or wrong. It's just, that's the nature of the world is, who you are needs to be a bit different here. Just take that corner off of you. That's a little edgy, tone that down. That's easier for me to be with. Yeah. Repeat, like water softly eroding away a mountain. And then you get to however you are. And corporate America or any high powered career is a great fit in a way for that. Cause it's like, I don't know who I am. And from that, I don't know where I'm called towards. Great. We've got all of the things we think you should do. And we're going to get mad at you if you don't do them very quickly and loudly. So go do them right now. Like you got a bottomless pit of needing to be told what to do. Here you go. And I've seen a lot of attorneys be in that, drawn into that, and then you're in like a rushing river and you just sort of flow along it.
And you get so caught up with, I was always on a plane or in a hotel or in a meeting or in a conference. My schedule wasn't my own, right? And it's so easy to just get caught up and not have any vision. Yeah.
Yes, it is. Well, Melissa, what are you bringing? What are we working on? Where are we going to dive in?
So I planted this seed about a year ago where I'm craving to hold a podcast. I want to call it Two Man with Love.
I'm going to take
And I
some
want
notes
to,
while you talk. Is that all right?
yeah,
Okay, great.
absolutely, please. And Two Man with Love. And it's just raw, authentic, loving conversations about evolving, right, into the man that you truly desire to be. And we'll be talking about different conditionings that are set upon the men, the disconnect of relationship that exists between the male and the feminine divine, and also how to embrace both, within all of ourselves. And it's an idea, it's a desire, it's a longing. I have male clients as well as female clients right now, so it feels like it's the next juncture for the work that I do. But I would love to be coached by a man who is conscious and understands this conversation, and really has walked his own walk in his journey of elevating his consciousness, to shed some light on where my energy should be focused. Podcast. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So, well, let me ask you this. So, like, assuming we did that, where would you want to kind of arrive at or find yourself at the end of our conversation?
With full confidence that I'm not bringing in my male wounding into the conversation.
God, is that a bit of a concern?
I've been working on my male wounding for quite some time, and the fact that I have private male clients has allowed me to see I'm just present and holding space for the individual. But now that it's a different dynamic and I have a co-host with a different energy, and right, I want to be able to see the wounding for what it is and allow myself to be present with it and not allow it to get entangled in the conversations. Yeah.
So kind of
as
like,
I'm saying that, look at how the body speaks. As I'm saying that, my uterus is pulsating, like the fear is already there. Yeah.
Got it. So tell me if you're willing, and
yeah,
I'm going to operate from the assumption you're willing until you tell me otherwise. Is that all right?
absolutely.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So if you're willing, like, tell me, don't have to say that part now. What is that fear that's showing up for you, just even in talking about this?
So I'm pretty direct with a lot of love. I'm a no bullshit kind of coach. That's why folks hire me. And I know sometimes it can naturally come out. Like I'll have a moment where I'll catch myself in an interaction with someone, with a male in my life, and I'll catch myself kind of using him as the example for what once was that I'm still needing to work through. And I come from sexual trauma, physical trauma, so it's quite lengthy, the relationship I've had with men. And there's all these different boxes that I can fit into with different relationships with men. So the fear is, the first thing that comes up is not being my authentic self, but there's nothing more that I am than being authentic. So now I'm questioning the conflict.
Well, on the one hand, it's like, I really get that, like, how can we be anything but our authentic self? Even in our inauthenticities, there's a degree of authenticity to them. And on the other hand, I'm on the other hand, at the one end of the spectrum, we lie, or we show up as less than our fullest expression. And I'm a believer, like, probably for the rest of my life, hopefully, because it kind of makes it interesting, there's going to be edges, places where I've not yet fully been able to express who I am. And I'm like, oh, that's a little edgy. So I could kind of get, this fear of like, oh, well, maybe I'm not going to be fully authentic in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So help me get a sense of that. Like, let's assume that's what happens. What would that look like? How would we know that was happening?
If I wasn't being authentic?
Like if your fear manifested itself or came true, then what would we see on this podcast or around this podcast or whatever?
If the fear came true, what we would see is not giving the person the voice that they need. Wow, that came really clearly.
And tell me what that means, not giving them the voice that they need.
Letting them know what they need to hear. What I believe they need to hear. Ooh,
Nice.
This is juicy. Okay.
What's showing up for you as you share that?
Holy shit, it's still alive. Yeah, because I'm seeing myself in sessions with clients, working with male clients, and none of that shows up because I'm very conscious and aware and present. But now that I'm speaking to you about it, preparing myself for something, it's showing up.
So, and what's showing up is this fear that you will not provide people what you think they need to hear. Is that right?
That I will not provide people what is in resonance with what they need to hear.
Okay, got it.
They're ready to hear. Yeah.
What is it that, so like, can you make that real for me? Like, what wouldn't you be sharing?
If I wasn't fully authentic?
If you weren't giving them the voice that they need, if you weren't providing what you believe they need to hear?
It would look like just telling them what they need to do as a woman to a man with that very unconscious, the woman is the one that wears the pants in the house and happy wife, happy life type of mentality, a very deep rooted unconscious understanding that, oh, if she's happy, then I'm happy. And I'm like,
right.
Oh, wait a minute. Like, what about your happiness? Yeah.
So from your fear coming true, are you delayering now? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, I totally am.
From that fear, what you're saying like would happen is you would be telling them what they need to do, like you'd be kind of manifesting that aspect of the feminine archetype or shadow or whatever we call it. Is that right? Okay. Is it actually? I want to check and make sure that's what you're saying rather than just agreeing with what I'm saying.
No, yeah, it is. And what came through when you said that was that because I'm coming from a sovereign, unconditional space, then perhaps their logical mind is not ready to hear what I'm saying at the moment. But energetically, it's what their soul may be ready to hear at the moment.
So I might have gotten I understood the words you said, but I get a little lost in the chain of how we got there. So let me lay the planks just so that I can make sure I'm with you. So we started like, initially there's this podcast you're called to put into the world. Two, you kind of want the confidence that you're bringing what is there for you to bring, as opposed to like coming from your wound or, whatever, getting enmeshed in that. I had that part right? Okay. And then so I was like, let's look at what it would look like then if that fear came true, if you didn't separate or whatever. And you said you would not bring your authenticity, you would not provide the voice that they need to hear. And from that, you would be telling them what they need to do. Is that right?
It feels wonky. It feels a little off. And I'm not able to identify what feels off. It's what's I'm clearly seeing the separation. I'm clearly seeing my authentic self and watching a man transform in front of my very own eyes. But it's the old wound that continues to reverberate, that doesn't pertain to my work anymore, right? Because I'm looking at the examples that I have in my life right now, and how I'm not applying this fear in those relationships, in those exchanges. So I'm projecting something that I'm already in practice of not even doing anymore. Wow.
So is there an issue here? Like, it sounds
No.
like this is kind of resolved.
This is resolved. Damn, you're good, Adam.
Well, I love those words. And I would actually say, so far, I've done very little in this conversation. That's not to dismiss where you're at. It's more to acknowledge. So this is you may have heard me say this, or you may not have, but like what I call coaching for dummies and super smart people. That's the loophole. One is, where is someone right now? What's going on in their lives? What's the context of where they are? Two is, where do they want to be? Three is, what's the gap between those two things? And then four, the coaching is we close that gap. So where this conversation has gone so far is sort of exploring where you want to be a little bit. And in sort of checking out the gap for you, I'm hearing there's not really one.
No.
Right.
No, and I wasn't aware of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious, Melissa, like what is it you want to create around this? And there may not be an answer for you to this question, in which case this will be a very short coaching conversation, and that's cool too. But like, where do you experience a gap in wanting to create something here? Where is it like, I really want this, and yet?
I used to be very type A personality, and I had everything organized, and I had everything in boxes, and I had everything color file folders and all that fun stuff. I had a label maker. I was one of those.
I've got one on my desk right over here.
Right. And part of the work that I do now is really just trusting the intuitive hits and allowing myself to be guided. Like, all the work I've done up until now is based on that, with fear every single time I'm doing it, but I'm really giving myself permission to surrender to it. And what comes up is, I'm about to air a podcast in a couple of weeks, and I don't have episodes, and I don't have this, and I don't have that. But at the same time, this sense of wanting to surrender and continuing to trust that process. Yeah, but understanding as well, because now I have another energy involved. I have a co-host, right, that I have to work with, and how to navigate that process, because she's very type A personality, right? She's very much in the world of things need to be organized and set in a certain way before you actually execute.
She's got a label maker.
She's got a
I'm going to pull mine out now that you've said this, because I just want to show, look at the size of this label maker, guys. This is a real deal.
That's like,
this is that's my project manager background right there. What did you do in corporate America, by the way, Melissa?
I ran a national campaign for a nonprofit. So I
Cool.
was in bed with corporate America, all the corporate sponsors.
Right.
Yeah.
I could imagine that sort of work would leave you at times feeling a little out of integrity. Like, I imagine there's a lot of compromise in that. Is that the way you experienced it?
Yeah, it was really interesting. I have a very peculiar background. I was at a table, at a boardroom table with 15 men. I was the only female in the room, and I had very masculine energy. New Yorker, Colombian New Yorker, raised in Queens. You know, the school.
Don't
of
get into
hard
an argument with
knocks,
you.
And it's balance, right? So I knew how to play the game. I knew how to manage my sexuality to get what I wanted, right? And then shortly thereafter, I ended up becoming a dominatrix in New York City. And that was a really interesting experience. And I realized I was a dominatrix because of my unconscious traumas that I had experienced as a child.
Mm.
And then I realized that's not who I wanted to be anymore. I didn't want to use my sexuality for to get something in return, like that whole I scratch your back, you scratch mine. I wanted to understand my sexuality and live within my own feminine divine.
Mm.
I just lost the question. I'm sorry. I wanted to.
You're doing totally fine. You're doing great. So how we got onto this path was I was just asking, or I was acknowledging and speaking to like how working for a nonprofit, I could imagine would have a lot of compromise, a lot of like at times your integrity might feel yucky. And then you were sharing your background and kind of the path that you've been on.
Yeah, my integrity did feel very yucky because the trade was, what can I give you if you give me? And there was loads of money involved. So money also became this, just didn't really have any meaning, or the meaning that it did have was I'm giving you something in return for it, but it didn't feel authentic or real. It was very surreal. Now that I'm speaking about it out loud. Yeah.
It sounds, the image that comes to mind is like the difference between bottled water and a river.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
you are in the exchange of bottled water or money back and forth, as opposed to like this conduit for cosmic creative energy or whatever you want to call money. That doesn't sound as wooey as what I just said.
Yeah, no, I'm all about the wooey.
Right.
Yeah,
I figured,
yeah. It's true. It's true because it's just energy, right? And now I'm also seeing how I had a client that was going to sign on, and he's in the issue of money right now. So I need to hold space for him, to coach him to get past that fear. But it's my fear being presented. Yeah.
So
wow.
It sounds like you've gone from a really masculine approach, which was corporate, like, and frankly, corporate America tends to be a very masculine in its approach, as well as in its gender. But like I like to separate, there's a lot of men in that, but energetically, the energetics tend to be a masculine, linear, penetrative, very aggressive, competitive, et cetera, et cetera. And it sounds like where you've gone now is to the other side, like very feminine in your approach, surrender to whatever is showing up, receptive, open. Is that about right?
Yeah. And now I want to work with those men that masculine dominance, type of approach.
To do what with them?
I look back at these very brief moments of exchange with certain men, right, that I worked with in the past. And I'm a feeler. I'm a natural intuit, right? I feel emotion and energy from everyone and everything. That's what brought me into the anxiety and the depression and everything. And because I was aware that I was picking up on others' emotion that weren't necessarily mine. And I remember having exchanges with a couple of men where I could feel that that's not where they wanted to be either. I could feel that that's not the role they wanted to play. That there was this gorgeous, vulnerable, kind soul inside that wouldn't dare to come out because there's so many masks that you have to wear, in corporate America, in New York City. And I would like to hold space to help them discover that and uncover that and unleash that and really give themselves permission to live in their own sovereignty. Like I actually had been waiting for Corona to come. I see Corona as a blessing. I see Corona as an opportunity for us to thrive. And I want love to hold space for men who are willing to surrender to the feminine divine, to give themselves permission to release what no longer serves and to live in their own light, whatever light that may be.
So thanks for sharing all that. Felt you in that. And I want to speak to everyone for just a moment. Like, to be clear, we're not really coaching. This isn't really a coaching conversation that we're in, which is fine. It doesn't have to go one way or the other. But I think it's important we distinguish that, because right now we're not, there's no particular place Melissa wants to get herself to. And absent, that's ultimately what a coaching request is. I want to be here and I'm here and I can't seem to get over there. So what I'm doing over here to really put the cards on the table is just like exploring what's going on in her life and being curious about some of this stuff and seeing what shows up for me. And it's possible we never do any coaching. And sometimes that's, that's how it goes. And that's okay too. Go ahead,
I'm
Melissa.
feeling like the coaching is naturally unraveling, right? Like this is the beauty of just holding space, right? Because there may not be an end goal, particular goal that I'm looking at, but I'm unraveling a lot of hidden wounding that I wasn't fully aware of, like, because I've been so inundated, to be honest, these last couple of weeks, especially with COVID patients. A lot's been going on, and I haven't really given myself permission to take a moment and sit. So this I would see as coaching as well, because it's just unraveling naturally the way it needs to for me to hear what I need to hear.
Yeah, well, here's the distinction I would draw, and thanks for putting that into the space. I would distinguish between the doing of coaching, what a coach does, which is like ask questions that explore awareness, communicate directly, actively, all of that coachy stuff. And then there's the being of coach, and the being of coach is who I or you or anyone bees with anyone, regardless of whether I'm currently doing my job or not. So when I'm with my friends, I'm still standing to some extent in what a coach is. I try to model my work. I try to be human. I try to be transparent, not because I'm coaching them, just because that's what I'm committed to being on the planet. And so I would say where we are in this conversation is like, I'm bringing that being, we're being with each other, but I'm not actually currently coaching you towards a particular direction. And that would be more along the lines of the doing. I do have a question for you though, Melissa, if I may ask it.
Absolutely.
So I heard like a desire to help men who are, and correct me if I've got this wrong, but like men who have found themselves in the same place as you, masking themselves, not feeling, shutting all that down, which I hear as I have a desire to help men who are suppressing their feminine. And so is it that you want to support men to more fully explore their own feminine and be expressed in that way? Or is there something different that you're aiming towards through this podcast?
Explore their feminine, but what comes with it is releasing the conditioning, right? Is explore themselves keeps coming up, and that naturally would turn into exploring the feminine. Yeah.
Well, what do you think the end point for these men is? And I know that's a bit of a fabricated thing, right? There is no end point, but like, humor me anyhow.
Okay. The end point would be that they release any unconscious conditioning of who they should be, what a man is supposed to be in society, what their role is supposed to play out as, surrendered to their own power and trusting the feminine divine, that we're here to actually collaborate. We're here to hold space for each other. Like, I believe relationships come together as mirrors, right? So we're attracting whoever we are in our intimacy, wherever we are in our evolutionary level, and holding space for them to realize in their intimate relationships that it's a dance that we're doing between the masculine and the feminine really finding who she is, finding her power, and then the man honoring and trusting the guidance of the feminine. Yeah.
And what would, let me make sure I heard that. So like honoring, trusting the guidance of the feminine. I heard there's kind of just like an exploration of themselves, and in that, an
Mm-hmm.
exploration of their inner feminine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's a question that came up from my intuition to ask you in this moment, which is, what is the aspect of their masculine that you don't want to bring love to or find it challenging to?
Power came up. The first thing that came up was power, their assertion of power.
Mm.
Yeah, their assertion of power. Because that's, so my history is assertion of power. Okay, either shut down or you're going to hear it from me.
Mm.
Right. So being able to stay in that balance.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what do you imagine might happen from that? If it's challenging for you to, yeah, sorry, let me ask the question a little better. Like, so if you are challenged to bring love, and I love, like, I really honor you for like sharing that. That's really important. You know, I'm of the belief that, turns out I'm going to do some talking. I thought I was going to ask you a question.
Go for it, hon.
So I'm of the belief that the masculine continues to wound the feminine and the feminine continues to wound the masculine. That's kind of the cycle that we're in. The way the world is set up is we see more of, it's hard to say kind of, but like we're at this point where part of masculine energy is linear power. There's a danger to the masculine energy. It's penetrative, right? We can penetrate through sex. We can penetrate through our focus and our consciousness. We can penetrate, like the question I asked you is quite penetrating. We can do it through war. You know, ultimately you run someone through the sword. That is more of the masculine energy. A lot of masculine energy is kind of trying to avoid that danger right now is part of what I see. And so I'm hearing from you a deep desire for like masculine reverence of the feminine. Am I right about that? That's a bit of like just intuitively what I think I'm hearing in you.
Masculine reverence of the feminine, but at the same time, the feminine trusting in the masculine.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. Tell me what that would look like. So what does the masculine, what do you, as the expression of the feminine divine, what would you want to gift to the masculine?
Softness, kindness, nurture, but not crutch.
Like not mothering kind of? That's not even quite the right word, is it?
Yeah, because nurturing. Because mothering, it's mothering. A lot of men, in my experience, are looking for wives that represent their mother, right? Because there's an unconscious wound,
Yes.
a mother wound that exists, right? So mothering, no, because it's not about replacing one for the other. Nurture. Yeah, because then if it's mothering, there's like there's an imbalance,
right,
that exists. Yeah.
What do you think men or the masculine needs to hear from the feminine as far as that power and that danger is concerned?
To trust the inner guidance, to trust the divine wisdom that lives within you, to know that just by them honoring themselves and what allows their highest good to shine will be of the highest good of all. So trusting that present moment, being aware of when those patterns come up, when those unconscious patterns come up, when those unconscious needs of filling come up. And being vulnerable, like expressing what you're feeling, expressing the fear that exists within you. It's just by expressing, by airing it out, there's room for healing and understanding.
Mm.
Mm.
Where do you find yourself in this conversation currently? Like, where have we arrived at or gotten to?
Yeah.
Or
I got to go into a deep meditation after this. I know that. A lot has opened up. I find myself with the immediate fear, like, oh shit, am I not ready for this? What are you thinking? How can you just bring an idea to the table and just want to create it? But at the same time, with this trusting that I'm here having this conversation with you right now to help me unfold, that's why I can continue moving forward on the vision that I have. Yeah, so looking at that fear in the face, like I'm looking at that fear in the face. A lot of stuff is coming up right now that can potentially be an impediment for this podcast that I'm looking to create. And there's fear, but like a surrendered fear. It's kind of nice. It's kind of nice because I'm not feeling like I want to hit delete and run away. Right? I'm feeling more like, good for you, Melissa, that you didn't know what this was going to be about, and you just kind of allowed yourself to trust and look how it's all unraveling. So good for you, and allow yourself to continue applying that, right, in your process. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Would you like some, would you like to hear from me as a representative of the masculine, what I often find wanting from the feminine energy?
Please.
Would that support
Absolutely.
you?
Yes, very much. Yeah.
And I want to be clear that this is not like, to sort of like trot upon or push down or to disregard what the feminine wants from the masculine. Mm-hmm. It's not like, well, here's a man telling women what he needs or anything like that, but rather like we need to hear this from both of each other. So I find myself really wanting you to, well, from the feminine in general, to be open and a desire to be revered for the masculine energy, as opposed to shift it or to have it show up differently. I think a lot of you can speak to what you see a lot of women or a lot of the feminine doing, but I see a lot of the masculine is trying to pull away the danger, trying to pull away the safety, trying to be really sensitive, which is important. Masculine energy needs to be open to feel into the feminine. And I notice a lot of what's happening is in doing so, the masculine energy at its finest gets washed away. It's kind of like, because it can't be trusted, we take away the danger, which then kind of neuters it.
Right.
What shows up for you as I share that?
Holy shit, that's not the intention I want to bring. I want to bring to the table. So thank you.
Well, to be clear, I'm not saying that's what you're bringing, right? I'm just saying that's what I often am wanting from the feminine energy.
No, but this brings a lot of clarity to how to allow the conversation to unravel, right? Because revering a woman, for me, it feels more like worshiping the woman and the man not having a say or an opinion, which I've had a handful of men in my life that were like that, and it didn't sit well with me in the past before I really dove into this work, right? It was because I was a dominant figure, right, in the relationship. And this is juicy because I don't want there to be a dominance or a submission to exist. You know, it's just like an ebb and a flow and a kind of a clear surrender keeps coming up, a surrender to each other. Yeah.
I'm on a little bit of shaky ground here. I want to honor
Yeah.
that. The shaky
Yeah.
ground is, I want to make some assertions, and I'm not an expert in this realm. You and I talked about this before.
Please.
My assertions are that what the masculine wishes to do is claim and open the feminine. I can't speak for what the feminine wishes, but what you're using words like devotion, right? Which would be like more of a feminine kind of energy, but it's the same. It's reflected just through the masculine, right? Oh, I want to claim this. I want to open this gorgeous like life force and energy and all of that, this being in front of me. And what really inspires or moves the masculine to do that is receptivity, openness, and surrender, which is the nature of the feminine energy. So the more open the feminine is, the more the masculine can polarize out and bring its strength to claim the feminine. And so I'm really curious if we were looking at this through the edge of like, what Melissa's here to do is to inspire more of that in the masculine. I'm not saying that's necessarily what you're saying, but I feel some of that as part of your journey. What is there for you to surrender to open to be receptive to in the masculine that would be an edge for you?
Good. Open and surrendered to allowing myself to be dominated came up. Where is that coming from? Wow. That's a struggle. Yeah. Allowing.
Can we slow down and just sit with that for a sec? Yeah.
Please.
Thanks for letting that come forward.
Because that word dominating just has such a heavy weight to it. So it feels really uncomfortable. Allowing the man to lead. Allowing the man to lead.
He's going to fuck it up, isn't he?
Yep.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not saying that like men are prone to fucking up. I'm saying that like in leading, we will make mistakes. And to be fair, so first of all, Melissa, I really want to honor you for, I felt you tap into the edge there, like more so than I have up until this point. That's not a criticism of how you've shown up. It's an acknowledgement of what you let yourself feel. And to be fair, men have not done well. We have led it poorly, and we have dominated from force and violence rather than from loving and a commitment to open us and our partners, to open the masculine and the feminine together. And there is a portion of the masculine energy that is dominant. What do you see there might be to practice? And it doesn't have to be a high gradient or anything like that, but just to like play with that, to practice with that you just sort of brought forward.
Allowing myself to trust in the exchange that I have with the men. That what may be coming up in the monkey mind is not serving any longer. It's not necessarily what I'm feeling about him. It's the unconscious wounding that's continuing to speak. So really, wow, just even thinking about it is overwhelming. Really allowing myself to just be led. what do I have to do to practice that? There are certain men in my life that are my triggers. And those particular triggers, having a candid conversation with them about what I experienced here, and asking for them to be in their authentic state, not necessarily the state that they think they need to be in for me. Wow.
I really love the way you show up when you're just present to like, that is really great. That calls forward my masculine when you allow yourself to be with that.
And thank you for that, because that in the past was always me deemed as being crazy or emotional or out of control or demanding. And that was just, I didn't know what the heck was going on. Like I was losing it, and I couldn't find, I had no clarity. I had zero clarity. So to be recognized, to be in the by a man and be honored for it is quite beautiful.
Yeah. Thanks for saying that.
Yeah.
So that's the dance of polarity, right? The feminine energy is at times, it is messy. It's an outpouring,
We're messy.
right?
Yeah.
And there's cultivating both sides of that energy internally so that we can, because if we all just did feminine energy, we'd lack structure and form. We'd have beautiful energy and stuff, but there wouldn't be that much form. And if we were entirely masculine, it'd be kind of boring and rote and dull. Shit would get done on a schedule, but like there wouldn't be much love or excitement or joy or any of that other delicious stuff, or sadness or grief. And what I really loved there for you, Melissa, was just the edge of letting the masculine lead while you bring all of the form, or sorry, all of the energy. Like let yourself be in the unknown and like, here's how I'm feeling in this moment. I'm scared. Here's blah, blah, blah. And trusting that with like trusting the masculine with that. I can tell you that there is a lot of podcasts from a variety of people telling women how to be and telling men how to be. There is not a lot of podcasts or work in the world revering each other. And it's what we really are. And there's like you just got in touch with, it's scary to do that. It's scary to trust the masculine to lead. And as from the masculine side, it's scary to be with all of what the feminine provides, because it's a lot. It's a lot to hold space for, to hold a container for. And most of us, it's a weak muscle. We have a weak muscle in trusting. We have a weak muscle in holding. And because what the masculine wants to do with the feminine energy is solve it, because then it'll go away. And then I can go back to my nothingness. And so I don't know what it looks like for you to practice from here, but really you exploring that edge, you sharing from that place, you deepening your reverence of the masculine through a willingness to trust, that will change the world. And I'm not right about that. I'm just offering you the feedback from the masculine on this side of the conversation.
Thank you. And I'm seeing like perhaps a shift in the conversation, whether it's a male co-host or, bringing in males to live on the podcast to have conversations with them.
I love that. That feels like a good place for us to kind of come to a close, but I want to check in to see if there's anything kind of left on the table for you.
No, this was powerful. Thank you so much. This was, I love that it was unexpected, right? And it served me exactly what I need in this present moment. Allow me
Beautiful.
Thank you.
I want to finish up by acknowledging you, and then we'll do some debrief. Is that all right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Melissa, first, I really honor your strength
Mm.
I honor it, and like I honor your strength, and I honor that initially the way you've had to to create that and express that in the world is through the masculine,
Mm.
and to survive in corporate America and to do whatever you had to do and to shut down your feminine, which is quite a lot because you have a great deal of feminine energy, a very feminine woman. And so, that you were able to do that for so long, I really honor the strength that required. And now I honor you being willing to. It is a terrifying thing to trust the masculine or anyone to lead us, especially when we have that much strength. Like you're calling forward quite a potent masculine because it's going to take one to match you. You can outstrength them, right? You've already proven that. And so I really honor both the strength and the courage that you embody wherever you're at in your journey, whether it's setting up a podcast, calling in a partner to the world, whatever. Just I'm really in awe of that. And I acknowledge your the juiciness of you too. There's a real luscious kind of sitting in feminine radiance, and that's really delightful to be with. And finally, I acknowledge you for the trust. Thanks for trusting me to let me lead. And I felt like your openness to wherever the conversation went. So it's kind of like a neat, in a way, we've been modeling that dynamic a little bit. And yeah, that's really cool too.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's have a look at some of these comments. But before we do, anything that you're present to in this moment, you're like, oh, that happened, or I didn't think we were going to go there, or I'm shocked that this.
There's no shock. There's no shock. It's more grateful, more gratitude. I'm grateful. I'm grateful that we uncovered all these little things that I really need to sit with. Because I was just kind of like pummeling through with the idea. I have to transition. I've been working with COVID patients. That's slowing down. I got to transition. Yeah.
Right. Very masculine energy, that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So let's see. Mara just talked about launching for love, how powerful that is for everyone. Mara, thanks for everything you've shared, actually. She's really relating to the experience you're in, Melissa. By and large, everyone really appreciated the conversation. So it's cool, right? Like, who knows where it's going to go? Are we in a coaching conversation? I don't know, but we're creating something. We're co-creating here. Leanne Brooke Tyler, who does great work in this area, I highly recommend checking her out too if you want to keep expanding your own awareness and stuff like that. Says, I see this in every coaching session I have with male clients, discovering that they're masculine, penetration, presence, protection, provision is welcome, wanted, and needed is an unbelievable, powerful thing for them. And I think it's not that the feminine is craving that too, but partially in that conversation here. I can't remember what it was. I think it was when you said the thing you're afraid to surrender to the masculine is to the dominance, to letting them lead. Mara said, wow, that just took my breath away. So that's a good place to be playing. And Tracy, thanks for everything you've shared too, says, totally in awe of the masculine that you will call in, Melissa. So nice. Stay on this path.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for being in the dance. There, it really requires a lot of humility, and especially these days, it's so rife. The conversation alone about masculine, feminine in the wake of Me Too, and to totally take ownership of everything that toxic or first stage or whatever masculine has created. It's hard for us to stand on this side where we're really honoring and holding with reverence both of those two energies, because at the highest level of practice, masculine and feminine can look a lot like the lowest level. They're drastically different, but it's like, oh, that man's being dominant, bad man. It's like, no, but he's doing so in partnership with the feminine and they're deepening together. This is wrong, or not wrong, but just young and immature. And so I appreciate you being someone in that conversation with me throughout this.
Thank you. I appreciate you too, really, very much.
Cool. Melissa, if people are curious about anything related to you, what you're up to, this podcast or anything like that, how do they find out good stuff about you or the bad stuff? Where's all the dirt hidden?
Oh, I got lots of that, trust me. But it's not in hiding anymore. It's all up in the in the visible. So I have a website, Faith Ramirez. I heard you rolling your R's, Mr. Adam, beautiful. And I'm also on Instagram, Melly Mo Faith. My
Mo Faith.
Melly, Meli, Mo Faith. So
M-O or M-O-E?
M-O, like short for more. Melly Mo Faith. I needed more faith in my life. My middle name is Faith. And I was always like, what is this faith thing? I grew up Catholic, recovering Catholic, all that fun stuff. And
I love that.
It was me finding my faith in myself that allowed me to walk on this journey, now helping others find faith in themselves. So Melly Mo Faith, when I took out that Instagram, I needed to find more faith.
Nice. And do you know what the podcast, you said, remind me what the name likely or may be?
Two Man with Love.
Nice.
It really feels good. Yeah. Because
cool.
I want it to be a soft conversation. Yeah. It's I love this. I love how it's all unraveled. Like that's the title. That was my purpose behind the podcast, but it went into a different way because I had my old stuff, right, that I was holding on to unconsciously, right? And here we are. And that just goes to show, like, my feeling was Two Men with Love, but my mind was allowing me to go somewhere else.
Yes.
Yeah,
beautifully said. Yeah. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if there's anything I want to put in front of people before we wind down. No, I just want to end there. So Melissa, thank you so much. Melly Mo Faith. It's been a treat to have this conversation. Thank you everyone who shared any comments or came and hung out with us, watched. And if this is something you want to hear more about or explore more deeply, I've felt called more into masculine, feminine polarity. Like that's just been a draw for me. Frankly, I'm seeing it everywhere in the world. I'm like, oh my God, masculine money, feminine money. How does that take part? So if that's something you're curious about, let us know. You guide our conversation. So thanks everyone for coming and hanging out. Love you guys. And we will see you next week. Bye everyone.
Aloha.